Welcome to Alaska EdVenture, Lessons from the K-12 Frontier, with your host, Dr. Meinert, Superintendent of the Fairbanks North Starborough School District. This podcast is your gateway to the heart of Alaska's educational landscape, where each episode features guests sharing their unique perspectives. We are bringing together voices that shape education in the last frontier. Join us as we explore the challenges, triumphs, and innovations in Alaska's K-12 classrooms.
Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Alaska EdVenture's Lessons from the K-12 Frontier with Dr. Meinert. I'm currently the superintendent here in Fairbanks North Starborough School District and super happy to have a couple of amazing guests with me today. So I'd like to have them introduce themselves.
My name is Sarah Gillam, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Schools here. This is my first year in this role.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you, Sarah. My name is Kate LaPlaunt. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Schools, and just happy to be part of this team.
Awesome. So let's dive into a little bit about assistant superintendents. What do assistant superintendents do in the school district?
That was the same question I asked myself when I think I took this position. For me, I think what I've learned that a lot of it is just providing additional support to schools and to leaders, principals in schools, and then also helping build bridges between schools and district administration too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get this question when I visit elementary schools and the kids ask me, like, who are you? And I always try to think about how would I explain that to a student. And so I say, well, you have a principal of your school and I'm the principal for the principals. And I think like what you said, Sarah, being there to connect things, I'm always thinking about how do I connect what's happening at the district to the support that the schools need and trying to impact students in a positive way through that connection. And I remember, of course, being a principal and needing that support from the school or from the district. So just trying to be that connection.
Yeah, I love that. When I go into elementary schools, the most common question I recently get are you the president? And I'm like, no, I'm not the president. So we go into explaining what my duties are in the school district and explain it much like you. I get to provide support to our amazing principals and down through our principals and to our teachers and hopefully impacting the students at all of our schools in the district. So thanks for that. I did want to touch a little bit, given this is our first podcast, a little bit about the why of why we're going to start a podcast here in Fairbanks. This is a great way to modernize and showcase different forms of communications for our parents and our students and the community at large. Podcasting is a popular form of media, and so we want to jump on that and be able to provide information to folks in a different way that they've been able to consume it in the past. This also allows kind of a greater insight into the daily workings of the school district that you wouldn't be able to see on just like a web page capture or even a social media post, more of a long form conversation. And so throughout the year, I'll invite a variety of different stakeholders to the table to have good conversations about what's happening in the district, really interested in highlighting people's voices and the achievements that they're having. So that's the why of why we're starting out the podcast. Hopefully we'll get it out every couple of weeks is kind of our rhythm that we'd like to work with initially. And then if we can work up to once every week, we'll see. That might be something that happens in the future. So if you are listening and you're interested in being on the podcast, let us know, because we are interested in hearing people's thoughts of what they would be interested in listening to. I do want to dig in a little bit more, Sarah. I know you got a chance to introduce yourself, but I want to hear a little bit more kind of what's led you to this role, a little bit about your background, and then what drives you as an educator, why make the sacrifices that you do on a daily basis to be in this position with the school district.
Yeah, well, I know you've shared your story before, and Luke, and my story is similar. I came from a long line of educators, said I would never be an educator, and then found myself in college, not exactly sure where my path was going to take me, and so found a path through education and loved it. And then in my first role, my first job as a teacher, I had an experience with an administrator that just didn't feel supportive. And having grown up in my mom's classroom and been a part of education, I just knew how integral the principal role was for teachers to be able to be effective in their classrooms working with students. And so I did my administration and then have been so fortunate, having worked in Anchorage and then the Mat-Su and then coming to Fairbanks to have been at West Valley for the past 10 years as an administrator. And part of what led my family to Fairbanks was what a great community it is. And that's really what I felt when I was at West Valley too, that it's just such a strong, supportive community that shows up for one another. And so coming into this position, I feel fortunate to have that experience to take with me of having been a part of a school and then the school district. And I think what drives me most in this position is knowing first how critical public education is, in my opinion, for our smaller community, but then also for our nation and our world. I was a social studies teacher, so history and perspective taking. And
whoop, whoop, fellow social studies teacher in the house. I like it.
That's just always been so important to me, and I think plays such a critical role in helping our students and citizens, be citizens of our community. That's really important to me. And so stepping into this position, it was being able to provide supportive leadership to schools and then also feeling a strong connection to the community and just wanting to continue to grow our schools here in our district here to be the best that it can be. I also have young kids in the district. And so, being able to support the experience that they get in a different way too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, well, we're super happy to have you as part of the team. You have amazing connections in the community and the district, and you've done amazing work. And so we're looking forward to continued amazing things out of you. I would share that connection with having students in the district and, a wife as a teacher. That really informs a lot of my why. I don't know if I was as strong of educator as I am now because of having children, right? It just changes things a little bit because as you have your own children, you want to see the very best for them and you want to provide the very best opportunities that you can. And so, having our children in the district, we of course want to provide them with opportunities, but we want to provide the opportunities for all students. So it just really drives us to do that work that much more. And so, thanks for everything you're doing. And Kate, what brought you to Fairbanks? I know you've been here for a long time. You're kind of our elder statesman here at the table. So.
I'll let you get a pass on that. What brought me to Fairbanks specifically was my husband's job. So we moved up here for his work. And then partially because I ended up in the district and finding a really solid career path with education here in Fairbanks, we stayed, and of course had our children here who are now not the youngest. My daughter's actually a graduate of West Valley and off at college, and my son is currently at West Valley. So we've experienced the education system as a family all the way through. And it's been a great place to raise a family and a great place to have a career. So, education, I didn't come from a line of educators, but I came from a line of learners, except that learning wasn't always easy for me. And so I came to education because I recognized the difference that an educator can make for a student like me that sometimes struggled, but I did best when I had people that would really invest in me. And that's, I think, one of the things that I've been trying to pay forward.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to shift our attention a little bit as I've had the opportunity to talk to different community groups and talk to our educators. I do want to share a little bit about kind of my thoughts going into the year and one of my mantras that's become apparent. And for those of you that are Ted Lasso fans, I've ripped off the theme of believe. And so if you are a Ted Lasso fan, you can think about that believe sign in the locker room and what that's meant to that team and the team formation. And, over the summer, I was thinking about different themes for the year that I really want to play back in my head. And it became apparent through a variety of different actions that believe was something that I wanted to settle on. And so I've asked some of these questions to our staff members, to our community stakeholders. Like, what do we believe in our school district? What do we believe about our students? Do we truly believe that all students can be successful as they go through the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District? And if the answer is no to any of those, what are we going to do about it, right? Mm-hmm. We're not only the people sitting at this table, not only the people within the school district, but people of our community. We all have the power to change things. And so what are we going to do to step up for our students on a daily basis, ensure that we believe in them and we believe in the education that they're getting. And so one of the things I've talked to teachers about, so this is, for those of you non-educators, this is going to get a little teachery just for a few minutes. We're going to talk about teacher collective efficacy. And that's really just a fancy term about the belief about students and the impact that we have on students. And so John Hattie, he's a researcher in education, has done a ton of research on different interventions that make an impact for students. And the very top intervention that John Hattie lists in all of these things he's researched is the importance of collective teacher efficacy. And really what that means is that if we collectively believe that we make an educational impact on students above and beyond any kind of other challenges they faced, whether that's socioeconomic challenges, a variety of challenges that they face in their life, that we will positively impact them and they can be successful in our school district. And so I think that's really important as we do our work on a daily basis, that we set those high expectations and that regardless of how students are coming into our district, that we truly believe that they're going to be successful and that we're going to provide them with the tools and the options to be successful. And so, Sarah, I would love to hear a little bit about your work at West Valley, and then Kate, a little bit about your work at Pearl Creek in the past, or the work that you've done to give students different options to be successful throughout their educational career, and maybe a little bit about like, what does believe mean to you in terms of being an educator within our school district?
Yeah, I think part of what always made me feel most at home in education is how it always feels like a team effort. That I, wasn't a part of team sports or anything like that growing up. But I love the feeling of all having the same goals. And I feel like as a leader, as a teacher, and then also as a leader of a school, that it just feels so powerful to be able to have a team that truly does believe in every student's possibility. And I think something that may not always be as highlighted about the district is all the supports that we're able to provide for students, that truly the work that often isn't seen in data or in graduations is a huge team that's behind the wings, the tutors, our SSMs, our counselors, our A&E support staff, our migrant ed support staff, our community partnerships with other support staff that work so hard to support our students that may not come to school every day with the same resources and supports that other students have. And so I think as a leader, it's always been so amazing to see we come together in support of students. And that's, not something that you may see as a community member. That's not something you may see as a parent individually. And even, some teachers may not see all of that, but they can feel the power, I think, of all of those resources acting together. And so, I think as a school leader at West Valley, it was just always wonderful to take feedback from stakeholders and then be able to enact that. And of course, at a high school, you also have the added benefit of getting to hear student voices. And that was always so amazing to be able to engage students and to hear what their needs are and what their goals are in life, and how we as a school and a district can really work to support those. I know we worked in collaboration with our CTE department to look specifically at what are the career goals that our students want, and then bring those pathways into West Valley. And so we were able to bring programs and able to bring classes in to support students' goals, after they left our walls. And I think also all the community partnerships that our school district has are just amazing, that we collaborate with so many other resources in our community to support our students and then also help grow what needs to grow in our community. So
I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so many great things that you mentioned there. I wanted to pick up on the student voice piece. I do love, the work that you've done in the past on promoting student voice, and that's something that I'm passionate about as well, thinking about different creative ways of how to ensure that we're getting authentic student feedback into the decisions that we're making, because ultimately, the systems that we're providing affect our students. And so we want to be able to provide things that they're interested in and that are going to help them be able to achieve. And so great work there in that arena, and we'll continue the work together. So Kate, how about you? What are some things that resonate with you with the term believe and kind of the work that you've done around that?
Yeah, for sure. So you're going to think this is kind of funny because I actually have to go to sports on this, and I'm not, that I'm not exactly a sports person, but it has to do with looking at the difference between how typically students respond to somebody that feels like a teacher in a traditional teacher role versus how students, or a lot of people, respond to somebody that feels like a coach. And I was a dancer, so I did ballet. My children have done ballet and karate and things like that. I know you guys have hockey kids. And if you talk to your kids, or if you reflect on for yourself about what the experience was to have a coach that paid attention to you, even if they were giving you correction, it felt like they believed that you were worth their attention. And I think when teachers believe in kids believe in themselves, and they understand that you're investing your time and energy into helping them improve. And so for me, yes, I believe that teacher collective efficacy matters. So the question is, why does it matter? Why does teachers believing what they do has an impact on kids matter to kids? And I think it has a part to do with, it creates that belief in the kids themselves that what they do matters and will make a difference. And so it's a very cyclical thing. At Pearl Creek, we worked as a staff early on to establish sort of 3 key terms, characteristics that we wanted to impart. And we really spent a lot of time to think about lofty things, not things that were sort of basic and, standard. We came up with inspired, compassionate, and involved. And then we went through the extra effort of explaining to kids what that meant. And we're saying, like, we're not going to settle for I showed up. We're going to settle. We want to be aspirational. We want to strive for these bigger goals. And then we talked about how all the ways that applied to their life. But I think that we really showed kids that we believed in them and we wanted them to believe in themselves. And we, even at the elementary level, found ways for them to invest in the school and have a pretty strong voice. I think believe is really important. And I think that we can all think back to somebody who believed in us and what a difference it made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of research around, if students have at least one positive adult in their life that truly believes and invests in them, they're going to be successful. And so thanks for sharing, the way that you've invested in students and taken that form of belief and kind of run with it. And so I want to transition our thoughts around 3 themes that I've created for the school year in connection with our leadership team and principals. There's 3 things that I think are really important for us to improve upon as a school district this year. One is improved attendance. One is improved culture and climate. And then, of course, our literacy initiative. And so if any of the listeners have been engaged in the Alaska education cycle, you're very aware of the Alaska Reads Act and a lot of the work that our district and other districts are doing around literacy. And so we'll definitely touch on that today and have future podcast episodes about that. But did want to talk about the importance of attendance and culture and climate and how those 3 things work together. And so for attendance, we're really seeking students to have 90% attendance or better. That's our goal. Of course, we want students to have even higher than that. Important to note, though, we're not looking for perfect attendance from students. If students are sick, they're feeling ill, they've got family emergencies that come up, we of course recognize that and understand and want students to have the freedom and flexibility to meet those needs. But on a regular day-to-day basis, we do want to consistently see them show up to school, because a ton of research shows that as students show up to school, they're more successful, they have better friendships that develop, they have more positive classroom environments and those types of things. And so, promoting positive, better attendance is going to be one of our themes for the year. Kate, let's start with you in the elementary world. How does that show up in practice in elementary schools?
Yeah. So interesting. Years ago when I was doing an internship, and I actually spent a little bit of time at Lathrop, one of the things I was doing was going through files in the counseling department at Lathrop. And I noticed that kids at high school that were struggling with attendance, it had been a pattern that was set in kindergarten. And so you could reach it all the way back. So as an elementary principal, I was able to tell people, like, listen, the things that you establish that are important for your children in kindergarten, when it's you as the parent or the guardian and the family that is establishing this is valuable, that will carry on with that student into middle school and into high school. It's not something that you can be like, oh, we don't care about attendance now, but we're going to start caring about it in middle school. It doesn't work that way. And then I'm really glad that you talked about that social connections, because when kids feel, when they show up to school, that's where they make their friendships. That's where they, create those social engagements and those bonds with their peers and with their teachers and with other people in the school, the librarian, the lunch person. And those social connections are very, very powerful and meaningful. They help with the feeling good about themselves at school, feeling like they belong. When a student misses even just one day, they can come back feeling less prepared, just hesitant and a little afraid of what they missed. If they're struggling at all, that just compounds that, and it makes it even harder. So having consistent good attendance helps them socially, helps them academically, helps them feel like they are going to be successful. Success builds on success. And you set that expectation and that set of behaviors early on in a child's career.
Love it. Thanks for your insights on that. Sarah, how about at the secondary level? How does this play out?
Yeah, I just echo what Kate said about that having those routines and building that consistent, reliable, pattern of things is so important for kids from the beginning. And I was thinking about 3 different things about this. The first, I was trying to come up with a good analogy of how it impacts teachers in their classrooms too. When you think about, we've talked about building a culture of attendance, and I was thinking of it, like if you go to the movie theater and you're watching like a big action movie, like something that's got a lot of moving parts and a lot of storylines. And that's kind of how teachers build their classes. They look at the sequence of events and how they're going to build their classes. And if I have to run to get a refill of my popcorn or go to the bathroom during a movie and I come back, I have to ask, what did I miss?
Oh, so true.
And so I was thinking about, when students are missing a lot of class, they have to keep coming back and ask, what did I miss? Like, how do I catch up? And of course, teachers have protocols in place for when that happens. Because like we said, we're not expecting perfect attendance. But when it keeps happening over and over again, there can be, kind of that snowballing of effect that, I've seen working with students that they can feel too far behind, that it builds upon itself. And I'll even share, when I was 6 years old and in first grade, I suffered from terrible anxiety around school. And it was because I was worried about missing something. And so I would feel sick every Monday morning and not be able to go to school. And it became this snowball effect where I would miss another day of school. And it was really important to my family. So, by the middle of the week, we'd get there and my family, sought out help and I got support for that. And it made such a difference in my life. So I want to go back to that idea of support, that if you have students who are struggling either from school anxiety or other anxiety or chronic health conditions, we have support in the schools that you can reach out to, whether it's the counseling staff, whether it's our nurses or health aides there, or just the principal, to get the ball rolling that, gosh, you are not alone, and we have supports to work through that with you and to find ways to help get your students to school, because that is so important.
I just want to say I'm so glad that you keep talking about the supports. And, at all schools that I've ever worked at in this district, there's an amazing team of people that come together to problem solve for kids. And between us 3, we've all seen all kinds of things that come up for families. And schools are incredibly creative problem solvers when you allow them to help you. So I hope families, if you hear one thing, like, let the schools partner with you. We are incredibly creative when it comes to solving problems for kids.
Absolutely. And never give up, right?
Yeah, never.
Even if the traditional environment's not working for you, we have amazing resources and programs outside of just our traditional home attendance area schools too, right? So if you're a high school student listening to this and you've fallen behind credits, we have amazing credit recovery options for you. So, you can connect with your school. That's a great place to start, but don't feel like it's a lost hope. You can catch up and you can graduate. We want to see all students be successful and do that. So that's great. Let's transition a little bit to talk about school climate. Jimmy Cassis, he's a former principal, a speaker in the educational world, and he has this great quote about school climate that I'd like to share. If we want to build schools where parents and teachers are fighting to get into instead of out of, we must make developing a positive school culture a priority for every school. And I just love that. I want parents to feel like they're fighting to get into their school, that we've provided such amazing academic places, supports for their students, that they want their student to be there every single day. And so, Kate, how do we provide positive school environments at the elementary level?
I think it has to do with empowering each teacher to make their classroom a loving environment for kids. And that, we have amazing educators. We want to support them. We know that we're asking them to do a hard job. But if they know that they're supported, they're going to invest their energy and their passion into their kids. And that when the kids feel that, and the kids go home and tell their parents that they like what's happening, that it just all feeds itself. In the many years that I've been in education at a leadership level, I hear more from parents about their kid, when there's something on the heart, when there's like their kid doesn't feel good about something at school. I hear more of those concerns almost than I hear of the academic concerns, because that's what the kids go home and talk about. And that's what parents are like, they want to solve those problems. And so if we just have an environment where teachers are investing in their kids and kids feel that energy and they're going home and they're being positive about it, it really builds on a positive culture. And then I think listening to the kids and giving, even at the elementary level, having them have some voice back into what's going on in the school, having an active PTA or PTO, having events that are happening that families feel welcome, and that we have a lot of creative people in this community. Letting them be creative with their child's school, I think, is important.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you highlighted the amazing events that we have happening at every one of our schools. As I travel around to the schools, I even get surprised by, the events that are coming up. And so if you're looking for things to do, please do engage with your school. Know that there's regular events happening and that we want to see parents there. We want to see the community there. We want to see guardians there because that does promote that positive school culture. So Sarah, how about at the secondary level? What are things that we can focus on to ensure that we've got positive school climates?
Yeah, I think echoing on what Kate said, what happens in the classroom, our teachers are such amazing teachers, and they work so hard to make sure that it's, engaging and challenging, that when students come in to the classroom, they're engaging in the content in a way that's challenging to them. And then also, I think our teachers, just to come along with the times, have worked really hard to make it applicable to life after school too, that they really look to try to find those connections. I know sitting in science classrooms, they find so many ways to connect the content to what's happening in the world. And the same thing in math and English and social studies and all of our elective classes, where they find those ways where it ties into, life beyond high school for students to be able to think about that. Of course, at the secondary level, there's just always so many activities to get involved in too. And I know research shows that when students are involved in activities, that also helps lead them down a more positive path towards graduation. So I was fortunate to be at a school this morning and was there for their homecoming assembly. And so those pieces of school culture, I think, just help connect kids to the school, help connect parents to the school. And of course, we're so fortunate in Fairbanks that it's such a connected community in the way that, we have parents and grandparents who have been to the same schools and participated in the same communities too, or same activities too. And so I think encouraging students and families to participate in whatever way they can. And if they feel like there's a barrier to participating, that they go to the school again to try to troubleshoot and work through that, whether it's whatever it might be, financial, transportation, that schools, it's most likely that when you ask the question, the schools are going to be like, oh yeah, we've been asked that before, and here's our plan for working through that with you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we really do have such a diverse community and a diverse student body. And so really one of our messages is that everybody's welcome in our schools, right? Like, we're public schools. We don't turn anybody away. Anybody that comes into our schools is hopefully going to receive an excellent education every day. And we want to be inclusive and ensure that everybody feels welcomed in our school and has the opportunity for success. All right, the final thing I want to touch on is literacy. And I think we're going to go to the secondary world first to talk about it, and then we'll let Kate bring it home, because at the elementary, it's a really huge topic right now. And so I think it'd be great for Kate to kind of end the podcast on that. But one of the things as we talk about literacy and, maybe proficiency levels not being where we want them to be, a lot of questions are around, okay, we hear a lot at the elementary level of, how we can help students and hopefully right the ship and get them to where they need to be. But we know we've got secondary students that are already struggling. So what do we do at the secondary level to help students that might be struggling with their literacy proficiency levels?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know, middle schools and high schools have been working to really target instruction for students where they need it, right? So we know that instruction that's at, the level that they're at, and then pushing them a little bit beyond that is the place to begin. And so our schools have been working really hard to find those interventions, to identify where kids are at, and then I know in my experience have been so creative in how to support students. And I think the other message that our schools are so great at working on is that even if you're not an, English language arts teacher or a social study, a teacher where you would often think there's a lot of reading and content, the task of teaching literacy really extends into every single classroom for every teacher and for every student. And so I know that often the two big areas I know in especially high school that teachers can focus on that's so beneficial is on vocabulary development and then reading comprehension. Because no matter what I teach, I can give you the word pickleball and I can activate your background knowledge and I can help you comprehend an article about it. And I think especially those electives and other classes that we might not always think of as, maybe focusing on literacy, they have that high interest content that can really draw students in, right? If I'm reading a manual on small engines, that's a really high level reading. And so I, as a teacher, can support in vocabulary and reading comprehension in that way too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love that you touched on those technical manuals because, historically, I think, educational systems have thought of career and technical education programs as maybe the non-academic track, but that's not the case anymore, right? Our students that are going through our career and technical education programs have to have the same literacy proficiencies as students that are college bound or higher, right? So because some of those technical manuals, they're at a much higher level than even some college textbooks. And so continuing to remind teachers and parents and the workforce that literacy is important, it really has a financial impact on our communities and our nation at large. So thanks for that. I know it's a kind of a challenge that we're trying to tackle at the secondary level right now. And I know with your leadership and the skills in our classroom, we're going to get there and we're going to move the needle on it. So Kate, how about literacy? Can you talk just real high level about Alaska Read, Science of Reading a little bit and what we're doing with that? And then we're going to bring you back on and some other folks to do a deep dive into it for parents.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say that I firmly believe that the Alaska Reads Act is timely and necessary for our state. And there may be specifically a couple things that need to be fixed over time with it, but I think it's...
Like some additional funding?
Yes.
I'm just going to throw it in
Sure,
there.
absolutely. Like some additional funding would be wonderful. I think we can do an even better job with that. But I think it's the right thing for our state to be focusing on. I think the emphasis at a state level is important. And I think it's giving us momentum that we need across our state and that we're just grabbing hold of at this district. So I think it's, I'm all for it. And I especially like the focus on the science of reading. And I think that we have been nationally kind of spread out all across the board of what good reading instruction looks like. And I think that the science has become very clear that there are key components to quality literacy instruction that need to be there. They're the foundational skills, and they help us build strong readers. And reading is a gateway skill to all other learning. And I'm just going to leave it there. I mean, I think it's really important, and I'm glad that we're doing this. And, when I've talked to legislatures, I've talked about that funding, and I said, we're going to do this. And when it's successful, we want them to fund it, and then we'll do it even better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we are going to do it better. We are going to move the needle one way or the other without the funding. But, the funding is a key piece of it, right? Like a lot of the legislation in other states were based off of additional funding to their schools to provide intervention services. And so that is something that as a community, we're going to need a lot of unity around, is advocating for additional funding for public schools. Public schools throughout the state are hurting to continue to provide the same services that we've provided in the past, and now we're being asked to do more, right? Which rightfully so. We want to do more for students. We want to continue to always improve, but funding helps us do that to ensure that we're providing the supports necessary for students. So, all right, well, I'm going to wrap it up. I just greatly thank both of you for the work that you do day in and day out, and for being the guinea pigs on this first podcast. It was kind of a voluntold thing, and so you guys have stepped up and done an amazing job. I also want to throw some other shout outs. A huge shout out to Executive Director of Communications, Rebecca Herbie, and Josh Duvall, who works in our communications department. He's been one of the brainchilds behind this whole thing, and he does amazing work day in and day out for our school district. So thank you there. And then just a huge thank you to our staff in the buildings day in and day out that are sacrificing a lot to provide an amazing education for our students, specifically our elementary educators. I talked about them recently at a school board meeting. Because of the materials implementation of Everything's Reads Act, I know that you're stressed. If you're listening, it's okay. We got you. There's nobody coming for you to say that, you're not doing a great job, because you are doing a great job. Just pick up the materials where you are, little by little, implement different components, and we're going to provide an excellent education for students. So I'm going to wrap it up there. This is episode 1 of Alaska EdVenture's Lessons from the K-12 Frontier with Dr. Meinert, and thank you for listening. Hope you catch us next time.
Thank you for embarking on this Alaska EdVenture with us. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll meet you on the next episode.